Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with the love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi.
Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. Y'all, I am officially in Vermont. Actually, I'm officially in New Hampshire. I'm playing right on the border and staying right on the border, and they border each other, and it's a whole thing. But anyway, I am up here doing a production of the musical Waitress at Northern Stage. Now, I really love Northern Stage. I've been playing here for a very long time. It's actually the first theater that ever gave me the chance to travel and come drum. And I come back whenever I can. And it's been literally years since I have done a book musical and not done one of my cool concert things or, played $1 Million Quartet. So I thought it would be fun to dive back into that world. And by the time you're listening to this, we will have started our rehearsal process. And I will have played through all of the songs and hopefully not screwed them up too badly and hopefully remembered what all those squiggly lines on the page mean because, it has been a long time since I've actually had to read music. So here's hoping it goes well. Yeah, it's probably fine. It's probably like riding a bicycle, right? You never forget, right? Please, maybe, we'll see. Anyway, the crazy thing has been that, so a couple weeks ago, you may remember I was in Texas and I was drumming in Texas and it was South Texas and it was beautiful. And then I went to Buffalo where there was like a foot of snow. And then I went to Phoenix and hung out with sea lions and it was 80 degrees and 90 degrees and stunning. And then I came to Vermont and New Hampshire, where there is a ton of snow. Now, I'm not going to lie. I do really like snow a lot. But the transitions have been challenging. And I am feeling a whole lot colder than I am used to feeling when I am in the Northeast because, obviously, I got very used to my warm climates. But I have all kinds of cool interviews scheduled up here and fun activities planned. So, it's going to be a good time for me and doing the show and for the podcast, which I am excited about. And speaking of the podcast, a couple of quick reminders. This is Rossifari Zoo News. It is a crowdsourced news program. So if you see any stories that you think are Zoo News worthy, you can tag me in them on the socials at Rossifari and make sure you're following along, or at Rossifari Pod on the TikTok machine, or you can email them to me, rossifaripod@gmail.com. And if you do, I'll say your name at the end of the episode unless I forget. Sometimes I forget, but not usually. So with all of that said, I think it's time to get to it. So let's get to it. All right, so we're going to start off with our headline story, and I'm going to keep this one relatively brief since I'm guessing most of you followed this story already on the socials. But our headline story this week is about Chappy. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, a gray seal pup was recently discovered galumphing down Chapel Street in downtown New Haven, Connecticut. While seals do beach in Connecticut, they don't usually do so in populated downtown areas. So the New Haven police were called, and the seal was transported to Mystic Aquarium. He was found sick and still too young to eat fish on his own, so the aquarium started a treatment plan that included daily fluids and also fish eating lessons, as well as, obviously veterinary care. Now, thanks to the adorable looks of the seal pup, along with the unique story of its rescue, the story really took off, even making it onto national news outlets. Heck, my mom even texted me about it. The New Haven Police Department ran a naming contest, and the name Chappy, based on the name of the street he was discovered on, was not only given to the little seal, but this was announced on Good Morning America because this story just really took off. And as time went on, the aquarium continued to provide updates, including showing Chappy eating fish on his own for the first time and making people just fall even more with the little guy and also with, seals in general. And they were also very honest, giving updates on the harder side of things, like when Chappy's immune system started to show signs of weakness and when pneumonia and gastrointestinal issues presented. Updates started to come out daily as Chappy showed signs of improvement while also remaining sick, and the team was very transparent about the entire thing. And then, unfortunately, Chappy did pass away, leaving a small seal-shaped hole in the hearts of everyone who followed the story. Now, there are two things that I want to talk about with this story. First of all, it is so awesome that this rose to national attention and that Mystic didn't shy away from it getting big, even knowing that the outcome could be sad. This story is such a great example of what good zoos and aquariums do for animals, even ones that aren't in their collections. And I love that a huge national audience got to see that. So often when I talk to people on the PR side or management side of zoos or aquariums, they talk about how their desire to be more transparent is offset somewhat, and to varying degrees based on who I'm talking to, by the fear of showing the public something that ends up having a bad ending. But when it comes to stuff like Chappy, the ending was obviously going to be way worse if the aquarium didn't step in. And so instead of being afraid of showing what was happening, people got to see the amazing work being done and to feel a little bit of the love and compassion that people in this field feel for their animals and animals in general. It's a good story, even if the ending isn't what we all hoped for. And honestly, I believe that seeing something like that will just build trust in the general public, which also makes it easier when it's eventually time to announce something that truly is tragic, to have to share a story of human error or something along those lines where the story itself is a negative story. And, when animals are in human care, stuff happens from time to time. This is the whole trust bucket thing that we talk about on here from time to time, and I love how transparent Mystic was about this. They built that trust bucket with the national public. And I also love that this story got them a ton of national attention and additional social media followers, because that means more people will get to see all of the amazing stuff done at Mystic, not just the incredible rescues. And that does actually include the fact that just 3 days after the announcement of Chappy passing away, Mystic released another reel showing another seal rescue that just recently took place, with the patient still in their facility and needing help. That reel shows that the Chappy story wasn't a fluke, that this facility takes care of animals that need help all the time. And that's amazing. Him going viral was a fluke. But Mystic was just doing what Mystic does, and now they got to show that to a wider audience, which I just love. The other thing I want to say about this is that I love that Mystic had some fun with the story. They shared cute moments and even announced at one point that their only guess for why Chappy was found on the streets of New Haven is that he realized that New Haven is the pizza capital of the world, and he wanted a slice. Now, the ability to keep the story light and fun and cute while also highlighting the amazing work done for this one animal gave the story even more appeal. And I really admire when places are able to do stuff like that. Every part of the team at Mystic, from the rescue team to the vets and the caretakers to the PR staff and all points in between, did an amazing job with the Chappy story. And even though the little guy passed away, it makes me so happy to know that he had a chance because of the incredible team there. I'm just so impressed with every facet of this story. And that leads us to our births for the week. Our friends at Blank Park Zoo have welcomed cotton-top tamarin twins. The species is a key one at the zoo, and their troop continues to grow well as this is the second set of twins born recently. Congrats to the whole team. The Walter Zoo has welcomed 4 striped weasels. 2 are female and 2 are male, and all 4 are healthy and being raised well by their mother. So cool to hear about babies of a species you don't see in a ton of zoos. The San Diego Zoo has welcomed a koala joey to the fold, the first born there in 2 years. The little one has been named Inala and is 8 months old, meaning she is now out of the pouch and visible most of the time. Amazingly, her birth came during the celebration of 100 years of koala conservation by the zoo. The Jacksonville Zoo has announced the birth of a male bongo calf, or bonglet, to first-time mother Cayenne. Both are doing well, and mom is doing a great job with the little one. I've still yet to figure out if baby bongos grow up to be congas. Hi, Drummer John here, the other side of Rossifari John that you know and love so well. The joke there is that bongos are very similar sounding to congas and that both instruments are played with the same technique and are often played together, but bongos are significantly smaller than congas, so they almost look like baby congas. I know, it's a deep cut, and really only Rossifari John and Drummer John and maybe Fred Armisen would get that, but that's the joke. You get what you pay for. What? I'm sorry, what's that? You don't get the Fred Armisen joke either? Oh, he's the comedian and SNL alum who is also a drummer who fronted the band on Late Night with Seth Meyers for years and also released a special called Stand Up for Drummers. Okay, I've clearly lost you on this one. Never mind. Sorry about that. Back to Rossifari John. Hi. What? What just happened? I think I blacked out for a minute. I like animals. Anyway, the Indianapolis Zoo has announced the birth of a male orangutan, the 12th orangutan to call the zoo home right now. Born to mom Siri, baby is doing well and will be visible on exhibit soon. The London Zoo has announced a slew of births in their Rainforest Life exhibit. The births include 2 golden lion tamarins named Pomelo and Clementine, a white-faced Saki monkey named Fia, and an Alatran gentle lemur that is still unnamed. Now that is a lot of babies cruising through the canopy in this incredible exhibit. And last but not least in this section, Wild Discovery in Ribby Hall Village, Lancashire in the UK, has announced the birth of twin bintlets. And yes, the official announcement did call them bintlets, continuing the trend of all of us in the zoological community just deciding this was a word 2 years ago, and frankly, I am here for it. The little binturongs are doing great and will be able to be seen on exhibit soon. And that brings us to our deaths for the week. Mulan, the oldest Sichuan takin at Potawatomi Zoo, passed away in February at the age of 18. She was the second oldest Sichuan takin in the AZA's population. She was a smart and stubborn girl who only agreed to train with keepers who had earned her trust. She was also a mother to 6 offspring in her time, adding important genetics to the population. She is greatly missed. And on a side note, I do believe that Sichuan takin at Potawatomi Zoo is the hardest thing I've ever had to say on this podcast. The Calgary Zoo recently said goodbye to Makira, a female panther chameleon. Female panther chameleons live about 3.5 years in human care, and Makira was a little over 3 at the time of her passing, so she was an older girl. She arrived at the zoo when she was under 6 months old. Guests loved trying to find her in the dense foliage in her habitat. Sadly, her age-related health issues became too much for her to handle, so the decision was made to euthanize her. And finally in this section, the Toronto Zoo has said goodbye to Bucky, the 17-year-old Sulawesi babirusa who was one of the oldest of the species in North America. Bucky was gentle, curious, and uniquely charming. Bucky suffered a fatal injury when he was able to gain access to a space occupied by a greater one-horned rhinoceros named Vishnu. It seems like human error allowed Bucky to get into the rhino habitat, and the zoo is investigating fully and working on a plan to ensure something like this never happens again. Man, I feel so terrible for anyone involved in this mistake, and I truly hope they find peace and that the zoo finds a way to prevent anything like this from occurring again. And moving on from births and deaths, we get to the rest of our zoo news section. Now, the AZA has been firing off press releases like they are going out of style in the last few weeks, and it's all really cool stuff. So, first of all, the AZA has announced the recipients of the 2025 SAFE Granting Fund. This year, projects by Safe Thick-billed Parrot, Safe Coral, Safe Sunflower Sea Star, and Safe Black Rhino are all being funded through the grant, giving these programs over $400,000 to work with. Now, as you've learned from our SAFE episodes the last 2 Tuesdays, the projects undertaken by SAFE programs are vast and varied, and the initiatives being funded through this grant represent that well. Safe Black Rhino is getting funded for a program that will help harness pro-rhino behavior through youth soccer programs. For humans, we're not making rhinos play soccer, just to be clear. But what they are doing is they're supporting rural women's soccer teams while raising awareness about rhino conservation. AZA Safe Corals program will help create a coral aquarist program that will have 2 phases, an online course covering coral biology, life support systems, water chemistry, and coral welfare, followed by a hands-on week-long training phase. That's just awesome. Safe Thick-billed Parrot will build and install new nest boxes within the range of the species to help increase breeding success and decrease predation. Safe Sunflower Sea Stars program has 3 key areas: improving monitoring and identification of wild sunflower sea stars, as well as those in human care, through advanced techniques, enhancing genetic diversity through cryopreservation and biobanking, and organizing a stakeholder workshop to develop a regional recovery plan. 4 incredibly different and unique approaches to conservation, all funded by one amazing grant program. You love to see it. And those aren't the only grants being distributed by the AZA. Over $200,000 has been distributed for the first time ever from the Animal Care and Wellbeing Grants Fund. The funds are being given to 15 projects within AZA-accredited institutions across North America. Now, I'm not going to go into all 15 projects, but they are very specific studies focused on either a better understanding of the health and welfare needs of specific species, or on staff training and education. A few of the studies, just to give you an idea, include a novel characterization of red panda gut health using short-chain fatty acid and stress hormone concentrations, cortisol baselines for captive Linnaeus two-toed sloths, evaluating the impact of after-hours events on zoo-housed species with a focus on chronic impacts and the after-event effects, and driving change, creating a consensus on best practices for zoo animal transport. Now, on a side note here, I love how many of the presentations and scientific proposals and such that I see in the zoo world just insist on using puns in the title, like driving change for something about transportation. You can just feel the nerdy pride the authors experience when they come up with those creative titles. And as a guy who comes up with 2 nerdy titles a week, I promise you, I get it. And actually, the AZA isn't done handing out money yet, because they also announced the awarding of $60,000 in grants to support Party for the Planet celebrations across the U.S. Assiniboine Park Zoo, Racine Zoo, Aquarium of the Pacific, North Carolina Zoo, John Ball Zoo, and Odyssey Aquarium have all received $10,000 each to help with fun and educational events centered around the Party for the Planet initiative, which I love just so much. On a side note, who do I need to talk to about getting an AZA podcast grant? Please? Maybe? Anyway, last but not least in this mini AZA Zoo News section, this week the AZA held AZA Advocacy Day on Capitol Hill. Over 60 members of AZA facilities joined friend of the podcast and president and CEO of the AZA, Dan Ash, on Capitol Hill to talk to lawmakers about the importance of accredited zoos and aquariums and the need to continue advocacy for those facilities and for conservation work in general. The team showed up prepared with some adorable ambassador animals from the Maryland Zoo in attendance to melt hearts and, also bring attention to the cause. I love that the AZA recognizes the need to interact with the lawmakers in this country and also the need to bring adorable animals to help. Also, super impressive, two student curators from Trevor Zoo, Jamie Caddis and Max Amsterdam, got to attend. It is amazing seeing these incredible high school students not only get such an incredible experience, but to constantly do such amazing jobs with the experiences that they do get to have. Now, you may remember Jamie from her appearance on my AZA conference recap episode, where she was, frankly, awesome. And it's just so awesome to see what the Trevor Zoo at Millbrook is doing to inspire and educate young conservationists. Talk about an amazing start to adult life. All right, moving on from the AZA stuff, Zoos Victoria in Australia has announced the results of their Moth Tracker Citizen Scientist initiative, and the news is fantastic. The website received over 1,000 sightings of the endangered bogong moth, which is more than a 250% increase compared to last year's tracking. How much of this increase is based on increased awareness and participation in the program, and how much of it is based on an increase in the population of these moths is hard to say at this point, but since both are positive developments, the news is fantastic either way. Zoo Atlanta has started working on renovations to the habitat area that used to house giant pandas, with the expectation being that the species will be returning to Atlanta in the near future. It is worth mentioning that at this time, there is no new agreement in place, and things can certainly shift away from that happening. But for now, there is enough of an expectation of a new agreement that the zoo is moving forward with expanding the habitat and looking to continue with and grow their panda program. A few weeks ago, we mentioned that our friends at Buttonwood Park Zoo had said goodbye to Blue, their 21-year-old harbor seal, but that the zoo was not certain of the cause of death. Well, after receiving the pathogenic testing results, it became clear what happened. Blue was a victim of highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPAI, the avian influenza that we've been talking about on here basically ad nauseum. I did a little more digging on my own, looking at the data about HPAI cases in Massachusetts, and it's actually scary to see that very few cases have been reported in the state, and that none were reported near Buttonwood Park Zoo before Blue's passing. There were a few reported at the same time. That's scary because most facilities are using that information to determine whether animals should be taken off exhibit or not. But if the data isn't current or accurate, there may be animals like Blue that are exposed to HPAI without warning. I'll be curious to see how zoos adapt to this reality moving forward, especially given some of the federal government decisions to limit communications with the public about things like medical data. It's especially interesting as Ohio, home of many incredible zoos, is currently the top state in the nation for HPAI, with over 10 million cases reported in the state. A lot of those are chickens on commercial farms, but still, that's a lot. The Browns may suck, but hey, at least Ohio is number one in something. I mean, okay, Ohio State did just win the college football national championship, but that makes the joke less funny, so pretend you don't know that. Anyway, moving on. Federal agents, Texas game wardens, and law enforcement agents from multiple other agencies recently converged on the Canton Grand Safari Adventure in Texas, closing down the park and starting what looked like a massive animal removal process. On the zoo's page, they promote the ability to interact with animals in a way you, quote, never have before, which is concerning. And the former owner of the facility is Jason Clay, who is in trouble with the law because of his association with Doc Antle from that whole Tiger King situation. However, even though the raid happened 2 weeks ago, there hasn't really been any follow-up that I've been able to find. The facility itself released a statement stating that the investigators showed up simply searching for documents that they could use on cases already under investigation, which does make sense given the previous owner and the fact that there are ongoing lawsuits around him and his animals, as well as those of his associates. The zoo has officially been allowed to reopen, adding credence to the statement that the zoo made. And I hope that is the case and that the new owners are working to make the welfare of the animals there a priority. While I will remind y'all that it is not necessary for the zoo to admit if there are any ongoing legal investigations, and that zoos are often allowed to operate throughout any legal processes aimed at determining whether they have violated any laws, all we can say for sure right now is that the federal and state investigators left. It doesn't appear as if any animals were confiscated immediately, despite there being the means to do so present at the raid. And the zoo is operational again. So, yeah, innocent until proven guilty and all of that. I really hope that the new owners are turning that place around and that I don't have more bad news to report on this subject down the road. Our friends at Roger Williams Park Zoo have announced 2 major changes coming in the future. This spring, they will be welcoming a colony of 12 Humboldt penguins. And then, by late 2027, they will be saying goodbye to the African elephants that call the zoo home. The penguin news is exciting, as lots of people love Humboldt penguins. The elephant news is being met with mixed reactions from the public, many of whom love seeing the herd at the zoo, but many of whom also would like to see the elephants have maybe some more room to roam. This seems like just the latest facility to decide to step away from elephants as the AZA moves towards larger herds, bigger spaces, and more resources needed to be invested in the species. Something we've talked about on here a bunch of times, and that I think is definitely the correct way to go. So yeah, I'm really proud of Roger Williams Park Zoo for making this decision and for pointing out to the public that while they don't know exactly where the 3 elephants that call the zoo home right now will end up going, they are working with the SSP to not only make sure that they go to another great home, but that all 3 animals are able to stay together because obviously they have those complex social relationships and love each other very much. So I love that even though this is years out and everything else is kind of up in the air, the zoo was very clear that that is being taken into consideration. And then last but not least, in the zoo news section, we all know a lot of zoos and aquariums do animal art. I have so much and want so much more. But the animal artists at Zoo Atlanta got to share their art in an incredible and really cool way. The ABV Gallery in Atlanta actually hosted an animal art show with pieces from animal artists at the zoo. 100% of the proceeds raised from the show went to conservation efforts through Zoo Atlanta. I love this idea and think other facilities should try to connect with galleries for something like this in their towns. Awesome, awesome stuff.
Stereotypical animal podcast theme song. Here to bring you to conservation news.
All right, we will start this section, as we have been doing too frequently lately, with a breakdown of the ways the Trump administration is attacking conservation since the last time we discussed this topic. A committee has been formed to evaluate the Endangered Species Act and the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and it's believed the analysis is being done with an eye towards weakening the protections offered by these 2 incredibly important and incredibly successful pieces of legislation in the hopes of helping companies and corporations be able to degrade habitats where these endangered animals are protected so that, the companies can make more money. So that's not great. These 2 laws are considered some of the most effective conservation legislation to have ever been created. So even a slight scaling back would prove detrimental to our most endangered species and the marine mammals we share our coastlines with. This last bit is especially stressful as some marine mammals, such as seals, have shown to be susceptible to HPAI, so their populations are already under attack in an unprecedented way. Then, on top of that, the Trump administration has been attacking NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The organization does so much that matters to the conservation world, from running fisheries to doing oceanic research to conserving whales and turtles to literally being where we get our weather data that we use to create forecasts from. At one point, President Trump mentioned the idea of closing the facilities that the weather reporting comes from, stating that we can all get our weather reports from our phones now, seemingly unaware of the fact that NOAA is where our phones get our weather reports from. All of this is bad. I wish I had a better word. I wish I could say something all sciencey and cool, but it sucks, y'all. It's honestly all bad when it comes to what's happening at the federal level from a conservation perspective right now. Sorry, I don't have a fun joke here or anything, but yeah, not great news out of Washington. I actually wonder how the people who did the AZA Advocacy Day felt being on Capitol Hill while knowing how just bat poop crazy everything there is right now. Gotta respect the effort, though. Anyway, we do have some better news on the conservation front. The Syrah barbet and Peruvian solitaire are two species that have not been documented and were assumed to be extinct since 2013. But now both have been rediscovered. This continues an unprecedented streak of rediscoveries happening every single week for the last few months, in large part because of advances in technology that give us a better understanding of remote areas and how their ecosystems work. Still, every rediscovery is fantastic news, and I am here for them all. It also gives such an interesting reminder of how little we know about the wild world around us. All of this talk of extinction and of rediscovery is all from a human perspective, too, obviously. Like, every rediscovery is a win because it means we can do more to help save species in question and pull them back from the brink and all that good stuff. But it is also worth mentioning that, nothing has changed from the species perspective, so to speak. It's always been there. It was just humans who convinced ourselves they were gone, and now we're like, oh, yay, they aren't. Woohoo! And I think that's such a fascinating way to look at conservation and kind of our anthrocentric way of looking at the world, But again, it is good news. No one is saying it's not good news. It's just interesting to look at it from a kind of non-human perspective, maybe. But I digress. And then last but not least in this section, so we've talked before about Colossal Biosciences, the company that is attempting to bring back the woolly mammoth. Well, they have taken the next step in this process, creating the woolly mouse. You can't make this stuff up. The company took standard mice and edited their genes to give them a bushier, thicker coat, akin to that of the extinct mammoth they are attempting to bring back. Along with the physical changes, the mice also have cold-adapted traits, such as the way in which they store and burn fat. The company claims this is not just an important step on the path to recreating the woolly mammoth, but they also believe that biodiversity is shrinking, and it may soon prove to be necessary to help animals become more resilient to the changes the world presents by altering their genetics in ways like they have done with these woolly mice. I have to be honest, I read about this days ago, and I still don't fully know what to think about it. But I'm definitely leaning towards annoyance and maybe even a little bit of anger. We are about to have our 10th Jurassic Park movie in theaters, and people still think it's okay to play God like this? To bring back extinct animals? To ignore the fact that the ecosystem has had between 4,000 and 10,000 years to adjust to the loss of mammoths, and that it will now take additional changes to allow for them to return? And that's just the rewilding side of it. This concept of creating new traits in animals just in case, or to help with rewilding efforts, I don't know. It all seems way too much like playing God to me, and I am not a religious person. From what I've seen, the vast majority of conservationists out there are skeptical of the efforts and also concerned about the ramifications of any success they might have. So for now, I'll be keeping an eye on it and reporting when something new happens, but it'll be a skeptical eye. And I have to admit, every time I write up one of these stories, I kind of feel like I'm reporting on a science fiction book, or like I'm stuck in like a Jurassic Park movie and I'm a reporter in that. It just feels so awkward to write these stories up and talk about them. But yeah, I do it because that's the job. But I'm definitely super curious to hear your takes on this if you want to share them. It just seems a little unregulated and a little... Is cuckoo banana pants the right word? I think it is. And yes, I realize there aren't literally 10 Jurassic Park movies. It just feels that way sometimes. And that's coming from a fan, y'all. But I guess when it comes to woolly mice, life finds a way.
It's time for other news. It's time for other news. Hey, now, right now, it's time. It's time for other news. Hey, it's a segue to the part called other news.
All right, so heading back to our apparent favorite topic lately, the bird flu. Bird flu has been found in rats for the first time. Not great news for a lot of reasons, but I'm also saying this here because it's super important that you not let your cats outside or even to go mousing in your basement or wherever they might. Cats have been shown to be susceptible to the disease, and if HPAI takes off in rat populations, it will definitely be spreading to outdoor cats and house cats that run into rats inside. Oh, and that's not the only HPAI threat to cats, along with the obvious one of, actually interacting with birds with the disease. Turns out some cats have also gotten HPAI from raw cat food. Now, there are lots of reasons why most vets will tell you to keep your cat away from a raw diet. Dogs too. But now HPAI is another one. Joy. I genuinely cannot wait for just 1 week where I do a normal Zoo News episode and I don't have to talk about this stupid disease, which I think this is my third time talking about in this episode. Anyway, and then we have one other news story for you. He is risen. He is risen indeed. And no, I'm not making any reference to a certain Christian holiday that is coming up in the near future. Instead, I am talking about Duo, the Duolingo owl, who is back. Apparently, the rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated, and now Duo is back and better than ever, scoffing at the idea that a Tesla Cybertruck could ever take him out. I would call this whole thing a stupid publicity stunt because it totally is one, but I also found it wildly entertaining, and they got coverage in national media and even on cool little places like the Rossifari podcast, so I guess it wasn't that stupid after all.
Oh, animal holidays. Animal holidays. Hey!
All right, and that brings us to our animal holidays for the week. It is March, which is Dolphin Awareness Month, but more importantly, my birth month. Start planning those presents, y'all. I'm kidding, unless you're going to do it. Anyway, and that brings us to our holidays for the week. The 7th is the last day of National Aardvark Week. And actually, that's it. There is nothing else until the 14th. Can you even imagine? That gives you a whole week to think about my birthday. I know, I'm really annoying, but you love me, or at least you tolerate me while listening to my podcast, and frankly, either one of those is good enough for me. And those are your animal holidays for the week. All right, so there you have it, folks. Another episode of Rossifari Zoo News is in the books. In the bags? In your ears? I hope it's in your hearts and minds. I'm a dork. Anyway, I would like to take a moment to say thank you to all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Kevin Williams, Melissa Reed, and John Lewis, who is the person behind the Also Here for Stickers name. Jerk. No, I'm kidding. Love you, John. Actually got a really cool email from John. Not only has he listened to every episode of the podcast, but he is currently doing a re-listen to the entire thing. And given that is over 500 hours, I am wildly impressed by that. So thank you, John, for not only supporting the podcast, but frankly, for tolerating me. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who contributed stories this week, including Anya Keene, Colleen Lenahan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbuck, Dr. Laura Shank, Ken Tryon, Madeline Weaver, Nikki Morley, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky, The Malenskys, Dr. Natalie Taco, Marianne Rossi, Christina Powers, Bethany Frymark, Jay, Meredith, Ann Yoshioka, Amanda Berg, Lizard Dunlevy, Jess Wells, April Taylor, Taryn Hanton, Sarah Gilstol, and Dominika Tukowicz. I hope I said that right. It's very Polish, and I like it a lot. And so thank you all for contributing. We'll be back here on Tuesday with a brand new interview episode. And until then, I guess all I have left to say is to remind y'all that the words Newsy credits backwards are Steider Giswen.
The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.
And that